There's this new agreement, the Trade in Services Agreement, financial regulations, etc., that Australia is negotiating with other countries. What are your concerns here?
Well, thank goodness for Wikileaks, because once again we know of a secret trade deal that otherwise we would have no clue about. So what we know so far is that there are now 24 countries that are engaged in this Trade in Services Agreement, which is not a trade agreement as such. It's more of basically a corporate deregulation pact between 24 of the world's countries and some of the biggest corporations. And it's set to lower standards in terms of, well, financial regulation is the one that's receiving the most attention, but it's also set to lower standards in other professional areas, which is of great concern for workplace health and safety. But just coming back to financial planning, we've had such a disaster in this country, and we're now looking at the financial planning rules and, of course, trying to fix them and tighten them. And now we hear that globally and nationally, our country is trying to weaken those rules. Did we learn nothing from the GFC?
I guess there's two issues involved with this agreement. One is what's being agreed to, but the second is the secrecy surrounding it, that we don't actually know, apart from what Wikileaks is telling us, what's in the agreement, and we wouldn't even necessarily know after it's been finalised. Is that right? Yeah,
this was the most outrageous aspect of it, I thought. Apparently, according to the leaks that Wikileaks made overnight, there was no intention to release these details for 5 years after the agreement had been signed. I mean, are we in fantasy land? It affronts every sense of openness and accountability that our system is meant to run on when you have an agreement that you don't even know about, that then you weren't even going to be told about for 5 years. I mean, what planet are we on?
But couldn't this be a good thing now, without knowing what the details are and how they're going to be finalised? You do have this kind of international effort that seems to be building through the G20 to sort of clamp down on tax avoidance by big multinational companies. Surely this sort of trade in services agreement could bolster that effort, or are you concerned that it could undermine it?
Well, I think in fact that, as you say, it's a provision, it's a mechanism to undermine what limited efforts Australia is now taking to crack down on international tax avoidance. It seems to me like this is basically a global deregulation pact to allow corporations even more freedom to be less susceptible to domestic laws that protect consumers. That's not a step in the right direction. That's heading in completely the wrong direction. And for us to only know about it through Wikileaks and for our government to be keeping this entirely secret is just outlandish.
Just explain this to me. You're a senator, you're a Green senator, you're involved often in setting up inquiries into various things. These negotiations seem to be so secret, it's a sort of a case of trust the Trade Minister, Andrew Robb, to do the right thing. How much overview, how much power of overview does the Parliament have of these sort of negotiations?
Well, that's an excellent question, Chris. Unfortunately, the answer is totally unsatisfactory. Basically nothing. There's a particular Senate committee that gets to look at trade agreements, which is a bit different to this services agreement, but it's a similar kind of concept. We get to look at those after they've been signed, when Australia has already agreed to those obligations internationally. Now, do you think there's any chance, after these things get hammered out in secret for many years, clearly they're set in stone, there's not going to be an opportunity to change them. So what's the point of looking at them after they've been signed? It's an insult, really, to say that, oh yes, there's scrutiny, when that scrutiny happens after the signing's already occurred. Now, it's not clear to me, because we're only just finding out about this services agreement, whether it will follow the same process or whether there won't be any scrutiny at all of Australia signing up to a global agreement. We'll find out, who knows when the government was intending to tell us or the public or anyone, but we'll make sure whatever avenues there are for us to scrutinise these agreements we will use, but often they come far too late in the process to actually achieve any change.